Now we can get going. Sorry about that, guys. We had some funny tech stuff happening, and I think it's okay now. All right. Let's see what's happening with Amedeo Modigliani. This is who we're going to paint today. We're going to be inspired by him. So let's get set up. I'm going to go to the overhead camera. And we've got a little music playing there in the background. Let's work with some heavy body paint and some fluid paint today. So we're going to have both of those things going. So I will start with my three favorite colors: phthalo blue and where did my three favorite colors go? Quin magenta. And this is benzimidazzolone yellow, but you could also use Hansa yellow. If you're not using golden colors, just get your three primaries there: phthalo blue, quinacridone magenta, and benzimidazzolone yellow. Those are really the only colors I use. I'll add some titanium white. Every once in a while, I'll use a little pyrrole red. These 6 colors come from the set that's down in your description, and that is the mixing set from Golden. So that's the 6 colors really. You don't need any more than that. So let's start with quinacridone magenta, of course. And one more time, let's take a look at our inspiration, Modigliani. That's just our inspiration. We're certainly not going to do a line for line copy of that, but we are going to be inspired by that for, you know, an expressive portrait. That's kind of what we're doing, okay? All right, back to the overhead camera. Let's put down some Quin magenta. This is pretty warm. Her face is pretty warm, so I'm going to put out a fair amount of that benzimidazzolone yellow. I'm not going to need a whole lot of phthalo blue because it is so potent. Very little phthalo blue needed. So I'll put a little phthalo blue over here. And for my white, I'm going to use titanium white fluid. I'm using fluid for my white, titanium white. Okay, first things first, let's kind of block in that portrait so we kind of know where we're going. Also, if you have questions, just put them in the chat box. I am going to open up the chat so I can actually see it. Whoops, I just put it over to the wrong place. Let's get it out of there. Sorry about that, y'all. Let's get over here so I can see what I'm doing. I've got too many things going on. Way too many things happening here. Holy moly. Okay, now I can see what's going on in the chat. If you have questions, let's go back to the overhead. Make sure we're on the overhead camera there. And I'm just going to pull this over to the second screen so I can see what's going on. Okay, so if you have questions, let me know. I'm going to just put a little hello in the chat box. I'm happy to answer questions about technique as I work along. Okie doke. Okay, there we go. All right. I'm just getting queued up over here, guys. Give me a quick second. Okay. All right. Let's do just a little line drawing of what we are looking at. This just kind of gives us an idea of where we want to work. I'm using a sketch wash pencil. And I'm going to try and do it dark enough so you can see what I'm doing. So let's just start her kind of here. Nice long oval. Modigliani did those beautiful long ovals with a very long neck. A little bit of a blouse there. Keep it simple, you know. It's very, his portraits are pretty simple. So let's make that neck a little larger though. It doesn't look like it would hold up her head. Okay, that's all I'm going to do right now. Actually, let's go ahead and put her hair and her bun in. That'll help us with the proportions. Okay, let's go like so, and we're going to put a little bit of a bun right there, not much. Okay, so we're just being inspired by him. We're not doing a line by line copy, just being inspired. So let's take I'm going to take a stiff brush. This is a bristle brush, hog bristle, and it is kind of stiff. And I like to do that when I'm, you know, kind of scrubbing in backgrounds. I like to do that with the hog bristle brush. So I'm going to have this sort of green background here. I'll grab a little phthalo blue, very tiny bit of phthalo blue. You don't need much. Tiny bit of phthalo blue, fair amount of yellow. I'm using benzimidazzolone. You could use any yellow you want. This green is too bright, so I'm going to mute it down a little bit. I'll grab a tiny bit of my Quin Magenta, just brown that down a little bit. Whenever you're using two complementary colors, green and red are across the color wheel from each other. So when you mix these together, if you mix green, let's go over here. If you mix green with any kind of red violet, you're going to get what's called a muted color, right? So you'll get these lovely browns when you mix across the color wheel, okay? Great way to expand your color repertoire with very minimal amount of color. Okay, so I'm going to just scrub this in. Let's give a little more titanium white. I'm just going to scrub this into the background. Give it a lot of air. Let that bristle brush do the work. I'll probably have to mix more paint, but that's okay because you don't want all of the paint to be a uniform color. So let's mix another green. Grab a little phthalo blue, a little bit of Hansa. Grab a little bit more of that Quin Magenta, tiny, tiny bits. This one's a little bit browner. That's all right. We'll put a little titanium white into it. Scrub right into the background. And the nice thing about doing it this way is that your backgrounds will dry really quickly because we're using a real dry brush technique. The actual technical term for it is scumble. So we're just scumbling that paint and see all of that really nice textural effect that we're getting. We're not getting a uniform effect, we're getting this really nice textural effect, which is great. That's what we want. Let's have some more green. I'm getting a little bit of my phthalo, get a little bit of my Hansa or benzimidazzolone. That bright green is too bright. Tap a little bit of that Quin Magenta, got a little bit too much. A little bit browner now. Let's grab a little bit more of that Hansa. Don't want it quite so brown. A little titanium white. That's really nice. Let's scumble some of that in there. That might be a little bit too yellow. That's all right. We're just playing. You know, it's not about making a line by line copy. I got a little bit too much yellow there. Let's go green again. Get a little bit more green. A little bit on the bluer side now. That's good. That's fine. A little bit of that Quin Magenta. I just love mixing these colors like that with these three primaries. It's just so easy and so much fun. I'm going to go a little bluer now. A little bit bluer. Let's see how we like this. Oh yeah, that's really nice. Look at that. Beautiful. Just put it right into that background. Make lots of different greens. A little bit lighter here and there with a little more titanium white. Just make that background just beautiful and interesting. Do we have any questions? Let me check the chat box. Okay, we're good. We don't have any questions so far. I am more than happy to answer your questions about techniques and painting and stuff like that. So put them over there. Okay, we're just continuing on with our background. A little bit more white here. Let's add a little bit of that Quin Magenta, get a little bit browner. Up here, a little rosier, a little browner, just for some interest. I know that Modigliani picked up a little bit browner in certain areas. So I'm just continuing to mix those three colors and making all kinds of greens, browns. I want a little bit more brown there. And you'll notice I have not washed my brush. I haven't put any water in my paint. I'm just mixing these three colors together and getting all of these variations. So it makes for a really nice painting. Just scrub it in. Look at all those great colors we're making just with these three. You can't go wrong just with these three colors. Okay. All right, we have a pretty good background going. Pretty good background going there. I do love a good scumbled background. It's just gives it such an alive feeling, you know. Now it is hard on your brushes. When you're doing this kind of scumbling, make sure that you're using a stiff bristle brush. Soft watercolor or synthetic nylon brushes will not do this. They can't stand up to this kind of scrubbing. So you definitely want scrubby brushes. Big, thick hog bristle is the best bristle for this. You can even get some of these brushes that are meant for chalk painting. They have nice, thick bristles on them. And don't forget about good old Home Depot brushes, where you can, if you're going to work big, you can get nice thick bristle brushes at places like Home Depot and Lowe's too, and they don't cost a fortune. Okay, we're doing pretty good on our background. Let's start in on the face. Now that face is kind of orangey and rosy, so I am going to use a softer brush. I'm going to use my Princeton Aqua Elite for the face because I'm going to lay down a couple of layers and I'm going to blend a little bit. Now when it comes to blending, one of the things that's really, really useful for blending is glazing liquid. This will keep your paint workable and wet for a good long time. It's a slow drying extender, and it also has no impact on the color. So I'm going to put a little out here, and I'll be dipping my brush in it. Now you have to pay attention where you put it on your palette. Let's get some out there, because it looks just all very much like titanium white paint. So make sure you know where you put it, okay? All right, so we got a little glazing liquid here, and you can always go to my Amazon store and check out for supplies. The Amazon store is listed in the description, and check out the acrylic painting list over on my Amazon store, where I have the glazing liquid, the brushes, and all of the colors and everything that you need, okay? All right, so let's mix up a kind of a rosy, orangey color for her flesh, for her face. I'm going to start with a little quinacridone magenta, pick up a little bit of that benzimidazzolone. I want a little glazing liquid because I want this to move around. So I'm going to start there. Let's put a little titanium white in that. That looks a little too pink to me. Let's get a little more orange. Yellow. Yeah, I think that's in the neighborhood. Let's see how we like that. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Now, I have got the General Sketch Wash pencil down here, and it is water soluble. So whenever I paint over it, it is going to blend into my paint. And so I will need to come back and adjust that. See how it's making a gray edge there? I'll have to come back and adjust that. We'll put some titanium white down. I want her skin a little bit more rosy. And you see how simple it is for me to mix colors, because I'm staying right in those three colors. I'm not using anything else. So I'm going to start here. I'll start right here. She's pretty rosy on that one side. And let's put her ear in before I forget. Now this is our first pass, so we'll be doing another layer on her face. So I'm just gonna make her ear a little bit more noticeable there. There we go. Okay, let's put down some titanium white. I want to knock back the value there a little bit. And that glazing liquid allows me to just glaze and move that paint around so easily. Let's get her neck in there. Okay, doing pretty good there. Lighten that up a little bit with titanium white. It's getting a little dark because of my General Sketch Wash pencil. So I'm just going to paint right over that with a little titanium white. There we go. We're getting that long neck that Modigliani was so famous for. Let's, the last thing we're going to do is her hair and her shirt, because they are on top of her skin. so we don't want to do those now. I'm just mixing up another layer for her face. I want to warm it up a little bit. It's a little on the cool side. So just grabbing a little bit of that benzimidazzolone, a little titanium white, tiny bit of glazing liquid to, oops, that might be a little bit too warm. Let's see. Let's knock that back a little bit. There we go. That glazing liquid is so nice. It really makes the paint feel silky and makes it move. Her ear could use a little work. That's a little better. Okay, and let's get that rosy glow on her cheeks. She's got a nice rosy glow on her cheeks. I'm going to just go straight Quin Magenta, a little of that Hansa yellow or benzimidazzolone, fairly good amount of that glazing liquid, and we're just going to give that blush to her cheeks, but we don't want it to just be a big blob. So let's blend it a little bit. Just softly. That's why these brushes are so great, because they blend so beautifully. Okay, I think we're doing all right. Looking pretty good. Alrighty, any questions for me in the chat box? I'm just double checking here. If you have questions, let me know. Once again, let's take a look at our inspiration. Whoops, pull her down there a little bit so you can see. There we go. Okay, let's come down a little bit. That's our inspiration. That's Modigliani, Amedeo Modigliani. And we're riffing on him. So we are actually just doing our own thing based on Modigliani. And that's the scoop on that. Okay, let's go back to our canvas. Let's, I think we've got a pretty good face and neck going there. Let's do her hair. Now, the nice thing about these colors that I'm using here, these three colors, again, these are the only three colors I'm using. Benzimidazzolone, yellow medium, phthalo blue green shade, and quinacridone magenta. And these are all golden, but you can get comparable pigments in from other brands. But if you want the exact set that I'm using, then check your description, because I put that mixing set in there, the exact set that I'm using. And then of course I'm using plenty of titanium white. Love my titanium white. And to make things silky and flow and blend, gloss glazing liquid. I couldn't live without this stuff. It's amazing. All right, let's do some hair. Now we're going to make a dark color. So for the basis of that, I am going to start with phthalo blue. Phthalo blue has a really nice dark mass tone. So I'm going to start with my phthalo blue over here. I'm going to need a fair amount of it because I want to put some texture in her hair. So I've got my phthalo blue, I've got my Quin magenta. I'm going to make a really dark purple. It probably looks black on your screen, which is part of the cool thing about mixing a dark color. You can't even tell if it's black or purple or dark green. It's just a dark. So I've got this really dark color here. I want to put some more Quin magenta into it. And now I'm going to go over here and grab some of the benzimidazolone. That seems like a really weird thing to do, but I want to make sure this is a muted color. And the only way I can really tell that, what I'm working with here, is if I grab a little titanium white. See that? Once you put a little titanium white into that color, you'll be able to see what you're doing, right? Otherwise, it just looks like it's black, right? Now, I really don't want it to have that purple hue. I want it to be really neutral. I want it to be brown. So I'm going to go back to my yellow. I'm going to pull more yellow into that mixture. And why am I doing that? Well, I'm working across the color wheel. Remember, across the color wheel, purple, yellow, mix them in the middle and they become brown, okay? So that's how you get these beautiful muted colors. And I think I'm right in the neighborhood of where I want to be. Let's add a little titanium white to that and see. Yeah, see, that's pretty good. That's a kind of a neutral, it's a little on the blue side, but it'll do the job. Okay, because I'm going to put it down with my brush, and I'm not going to, probably not going to put much in the way of titanium white into it. So it'll come across as a dark, right? Even though if you look right here, it looks like it's got a blue tint to it, like a Prussian blue maybe. But it's going to do the job. So I'm going to block this in with my soft brush first. I'm going to add just the tiniest amount of water, very little water. I keep saying that, I sound like a broken record, but that is actually one of the biggest mistakes that acrylic painters make, is they use too much water. Beginning acrylic painters. Too much water. Less water, y'all, less water. You can use some, but don't get carried away. And I probably shouldn't have done that right there because, yeah, well, we'll see. I might have to fix that, but we'll see. I'm not sure about that contour line right there. Might have gone a little overboard with that. We'll see. Can always fix stuff. If you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Just want to lay that shape in. Just lay the shape in. Tiny bits of water, just a tiny, tiny bit, to make that paint flow a little better. Okay, good enough. Now let's add that top knot. There we go. That's pretty good. I think we'll probably come back and fix the contour line right here because I'm not crazy about it. But we will we'll work with that in a minute. Let's take this very same color and we will put her her blouse in. I know she's got a white collar. If I have time, I'll come back and put that white collar in as well. We might not have time to do that. We'll see. Now I'm going to need to mix up more of this, so I'm going to grab my phthalo, grab my Quinn. I've got a very dirty brush. I'm working with a really dirty brush. A little of that benzimidazoline. And again, it doesn't really matter what color I mix. It's a dark, sort of a generic dark color, right? It does the job. So we're just using those three colors over and over again and getting this amazing range. I love the fact that we can just use those three. I'm going to mix just a tiny bit of titanium white into that. And just a tiny bit more Quinn magenta. I just want a little variety. Seemed a little blasé to me there. Very simple portrait based on Modigliani, who did wonderful, wonderful expressive portraits. I would say they're abstract. And you know, let's match the shoulders here. I had that off by a little bit there, didn't I? There we go. That's a little better. Now the fun part. Let's do her features. And actually, before I do that, let's correct that hairline there. So I'm going to get a dry brush that is a bristle brush. Remember, we were using bristle brushes for this background. And I want to just pull this back a little bit. Let's see, is it dry enough? Yeah. It's just a little clunky up there. So let's play with that a little bit. I'm going to get a little titanium white, Quinn magenta, phthalo blue, Quinn magenta, and Hansa or benzimidazoline. Let's get a green going of some sort. Little titanium white. Let's start there, make sure that's dry. Just wanted that to be it was a little clunky right there. So let's just pull it back a little bit. Do we like that? Maybe even a little bit more. Let's come in a little bit more. There we go. Because her head in the picture was kind of in a 3/4 view. Yeah, that's much better. It was a little clunky. That's the great thing about acrylic, you know? You can make these changes and corrections. And also looks like I got a little sloppy hair on the side of her neck. I left a little bit too much air there. There we go. That's a little neater, a little cleaner. Let's clean up her face right here. Okay, yeah, looking good. Let's blend our background up here so it doesn't look too clunky. All right, I'm much happier with that hairline. Her hairline was a little clunky there to begin with. And while I have this dry brush, I'm going to wipe off most of the green. I do want to come back and give her the collar here. I think we need it. That's a little bit wet. Let's see if we can get away with doing a little painting there. Now I'm going to probably pick up some of this green, but let's see if we can get away with doing a little lace collar here. And I know this is going to be a little wet, so I'm going to just really be gentle with my paint strokes. Pretty dry, just drag it. we want it to look lacy anyway, so I'm picking up a little bit of that purple. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but we'll see. We may have to come back and do another layer on that to make it a nice white, but right now I think we're okay. I'm going to turn this to the side so I can scumble sideways. A little bit more on the side there. Just trying to make it look lacy, feathery, you know, not too solid per se. Let's touch this up here. Just flicking with that brush, you know. Don't bear down too hard or you'll pick up that purple underneath. Just have a light hand and just kind of flick that brush. Doing 2 layers really makes a difference. Gives you the option there to have that first layer get kind of dry so the second layer will sit nicely on top of it. Okay, I think our lace collar is okay for now. You can always come back and touch it up later, but that's good for now. We won't spend any more time on that. Now we get to do the features. Now there's a couple of ways you could do the features. You could actually use a paint pen to do the features if you want to. It's going to give you a different kind of line. So if we, let me get a piece of paper and I'll show you what I mean. If we use a paint pen to do the features, we're going to get a line. Let me find a paint pen, a dark one. We're going to get a line like this, right? For the eye and the eyebrow and things like that. If we use a paintbrush, we're going to get a different kind of line. So I'm going to get a very small paintbrush and we'll pick up a little of this dark that we were using. Going to want a little bit of water because we want it to flow really well. So if we do it with a paintbrush, we're going to get this kind of line. So let me come in a little bit with the camera so you can see the difference there. See the difference there? This one's very painterly and brushy. This one's really flat. It just depends on what you want. I prefer using a line made with a paintbrush, so that's what I'm going to do. So we're back to our canvas here. And I'm just going to check the chat box to see if we have any questions. Looks like we're okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to mix up kind of a dark color, not too dark. And I am going to start with her nose, which is very long. So I'm going to start about here with her nose. Now I will go to her eyebrows. Oops, need a little bit of water. A little bit of water on my brush. And I'm using a really tiny brush. Now that looks a little heavy, so I'm going to blot that. Actually, let's take that up. Just a little bit of water and blot it. So that looked a little bit heavy to me. And if you have a mistake like that and you get it before it dries, you can pick it up with a little bit of water. So I'm going to do that one again. A little bit thinner. Let's go a little thinner this time. Making sure I have not much paint on my brush. That's better. Okay, now eyes. Pretty simple with the eyes. And her mouth. We'll pick up a little Quin Magenta on my brush. Little glazing liquid. Little tiny mouth. Little bitty mouth. I'm gonna make that a little bit more a little stronger there. There we go. Now, Modigliani tended to fill in the eyes here. And you can do that. I think I'll do that. It's a little odd, maybe, but that's the way he did them. Without a pupil or an iris, just filled in, sort of like an Egyptian painting there. Reminds me a lot of the way the Egyptians painted their portraits, just with the eyes dark. I think we could have a little bit more eyebrow action right here. There we go. Okay, well, that's our Modigliani inspired portrait today. That is inspired by Modigliani, certainly not a line-by-line rendition. But, you know, you can always be inspired by an artist. It's always a good idea to be inspired by an artist and have fun with that, right? Okay, so that is our YouTube Live today, our expressive portrait by Amedeo Modigliani, inspired by Amedeo Modigliani. Join me back here, check that notification, subscribe, and hit that bell so that you get notified. I'm going to be traveling a little bit, so it'll be a week or so before I come back for YouTube Live, but I hope you join me again. And if you need materials or anything, check the description. I have all the materials that I use in the description down there. You can always get those at my Amazon store too. All right? Everybody have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Keep painting, okay? Bye-bye.